Good morning, good afternoon from wherever you are dialing in or listening to this recording. My name is Marla Skibbins, and I am the founder of Level Up EQ. And this is improving team communication for teaming excellence with the Enneagram. And I will say a little bit about myself and introduce my esteemed co-leaders. I am an executive coach and teaming coach and have been working with teams and individuals for the last 20 plus years with a hard focus in tech and biotech for the last 16 years. And I am super excited to have my two co-leaders with me, Megan Prentice and Andrea Weiner. They are both Enneagram specialists and experts. And we together are going to talk to you about how the Enneagram can help your team boost their communication and their teaming excellence. So Andrea, you're going to tell us what the heck we're doing today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Marla. So we're here to learn about working with different communication styles that enhance team connection and collaboration. So in service of that, we'll outline our agenda for today. And we're going to be talking about elevating our attention beyond our habituated behaviors and our conditioned points of view. This is what the Enneagram helps us to do. And we use this tool in order to communicate more skillfully and mindfully. And what this means is elevating our attention to generate more trust and understanding in our team relationships. So using the Enneagram, the reason that we're here today is because using the Enneagram in our individual and team coaching programs provides our Level Up EQ clients with a deeper level of insight. This helps us help them sharpen the focus on where to place attention in conversations in order to be better heard and understood, and to embrace a greater range of communication styles in our workplace dynamics. It's that awareness that not everyone communicates the way that we do, not everyone confronts conflict the way we do, and creating this understanding helps ease and elevate our communications in teams. So our agenda today is going to be to explain how the Enneagram can be useful to you and your colleagues in the development of greater communication skills. We'll provide a couple of case studies to explain this further and expound on how it actually works. And then we'll be offering an exercise for you to reflect on areas where you may have gotten some feedback on your own communication style and its impact. So finally, and take this into consideration, we'll invite one of you to step forward for some coaching to explore shifts that are possible in your own development. So this is a great opportunity to get coaching from masterful coaches on how you can level up with your team. But first, we are going to put a quick poll in the chat for you to respond to. So Marla, would you please set us up for this?
And the poll is both to set us up possibly for the later coaching. It's also just to illustrate how different our communication styles are. So here's the poll. Go ahead, and this this is, what would you say primarily motivates you? You've got a lot of motivations, obviously, but what at the core of you, what motivates? And it's really about how this resonates for you when you read the different sentences. So read them, see which one you go, oh yeah, that's me, click that. When you're done, we will post the results. We'll only take a few moments to do this. And when you're done, we'll look at the results.
Marley seems to be tabulating them.
Great.
Yep, I was just waiting to see if we'd get one last person to answer.
Okay, you out there who hasn't done the poll yet, you matter. We want you.
If not, we can give it just a couple more seconds. 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
All righty.
So let's share those results.
I was going to say I can share out those results verbally if we'd like, or I can put them
Yeah,
up.
go ahead.
Why don't you show them? Why don't you just, is there a way to present them? If not, you can say it out loud.
Yeah, let me see if I can get it to share it properly.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for showing this. I think it's interesting because, you know, we want to call attention to, this is just showing a little bit of diversity here. I mean, a little bit of diversity. We do have to, I see some concentration.
Well, and let's like notice, so if we're in a room where 75% of the people want to provide expertise and understanding things well, and one person who's saying, I want to help certain people in need, we may have an issue. And this, I just got a team report in the Enneagram of teaming that I'm doing with a group. And we just added a few team members. And now all of a sudden the team is slanted towards a particular motivation and communication style, which is going to run right over a lot of the other team members. So this is an example of what that can look like.
Yes, it's just noticing, right, how different motivations drive our actions and drive our views. And just it even influences even how we feel or what we feel, right? So that's, I think the point of this exercise was just to help make the point, right, is that we all come from different motivations, and that just informs our behavior and our thought patterns and just our interpretation of feelings. And look, if my viewpoint, like, I'm definitely one of those harmonious people, right? I love to see where I can maintain harmony in my relationships and in the solutions that work for everyone. And okay, so you could probably expect that, well, with this harmony bias, I have a certain communication style and a conflict style, and harmony might hold me back, right, in some difficult situations. I may judge those of my colleagues that are more comfortable to passionate, heated debate, right? And maybe I even lean back a little bit and shut down in those conversations. So this is showing me where I have some development work to do. But it's also sharing with my colleagues how others can relate to me with the greater care and compassion. And just the more we're really talking about, you know, how teams can meet each other better in different motivations and communication style and even conflict style. And so here's how we can be more skillful in choosing the strategies that meet people better in their needs, right? For collaboration and decisions. And so we're going to step everyone through in a bit some case studies that make this more alive. But we probably should talk a little bit more about the Enneagram. What is the Enneagram, and what are we talking about, and how we use this in?
And I'll just jump in and add one last thing, Megan.
Yeah.
What Megan's speaking to is that, like, none of these 9 archetypes that we'll speak to about the Enneagram we're not right or wrong in any of those perspectives. And what, if I'm pronouncing it right, I believe what Enver is speaking to is that it's important that we speak to people, provide solutions along the lines of what their type is. Understanding what Megan's pointing to, just because she's the diplomat doesn't mean that everyone works that way. So it's that understanding, and Marla will talk about this in the types, that our truth is not the capital T truth. Our truth is the small t truth, and each of us has our own truth in terms of how we show up and how we communicate. So Marla will talk a little bit to what that looks like by each of the types.
We're probably not going to go through all of the types.
Right.
I'm more going to talk on a much more higher level. An hour is not going to be enough to get through that.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. No,
I was
it's
too
okay.
ambitious.
I know. Because we want you all to know it all. What I want to say about the Enneagram is that it is a high density model, unlike many of the personality style, like insights or DISC. It gives you a snapshot of behaviors, and oftentimes with teams freeze frames people in a particular role with no real opportunity for growth and development and change. And what I love about the Enneagram is it is both a snapshot, it is both a mirror for where we step onto the model or where we get typed into the model, but it's also a developmental process. It's also a map for human development, leadership efficacy, teaming efficacy, and excellence. And that's what's so exciting about it. And it has so many different avenues for development. Again, parts we're not going to be able to talk about in depth today, but whether you're looking at how your particular Enneagram point may progress in stress or when more integrated, or whether the Enneagram point you're in could be more balanced by using the wings. There are lots of different opportunities to use the model for your own self-development, leadership development, and team development. So I've used this model. I was first came into contact with it in a spiritual school. I was a student in 30 years ago, and I've literally been using this model as one of the lenses that I use to do personal development, and also to notice, Megan and I were working on this, this program. I am a 3. I do have a bias, not only for action, but for efficiency and getting stuff done. And, you know, though I was, I think, getting a little bit into that more ambitious task mastery kind of place, she just went, oh, and then there is the Enneagram 3, and, you know, not really pointing to me, but just to the dynamic. And I'm like, oh, yeah, right. So it isn't just, oh, I'm going to change because now I know I'm a 3, or my teammate knows I'm a 3 and therefore has to interact with me a different way. Just having the knowledge helps us both relax a little bit and go, oh, and maybe not even take it so seriously, because we are not the type, but we can show up in certain ways, and then we can go, oh yeah, I'm doing that thing again and I don't want to. So I find this with my teams when they can see and have a snapshot of, oh, this is how I operate. This is how my team operates. There's a relaxation and a less taking it personally, and they can go, oh, wow, I see how I am. And now I don't have to be somehow wedded to or defending myself. I can actually get more comfort and resilience around patterns, and maybe even shake them up a little bit and not go into that pattern to respond so much. Anything you want to add, you two, about what you would say in the introduction of the Enneagram?
I would like, I was going to add one point that I think can be helpful to add is that, you know, we may have worked with other personality assessments in the past and really trying to understand the other, ourselves and other better. The other personality systems are really pointing out behavior. What do you do? And look, we can all do the same thing. Where the Enneagram is helping us to bring greater insight and depth is, why do we do that thing that we do? Because if we can really understand, we use this metaphor of like the iceberg, right? What you can see above the water is actually, it needs to be explained with what's driving that behavior. Because once we can understand why we're doing this thing that we're doing, we can bring ourselves so much more compassion and more strategies and options to, oh, and what are the other options that are available to me? But it actually helps us to bring more compassion in a relationship with others as well. Why is my colleague so passionate and confrontational in debate? Well, because he has a real need to be in control and to be strong and avoiding weakness at all costs. It is too vulnerable to show my weakness. Then I can relate to my colleague a lot differently in knowing what the underlying motivation is. So Andrea.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. And I'm reinforcing what Megan's saying, in that what we find so key about this is that the types and understanding the types and the intrinsic motivation that Megan's speaking to gives us this neutral language. When we can neutralize our response to others and not be triggered by their behavior and understand that it's not about us, we can have a clearer landscape from which to negotiate, engage, for decision-making, all of things that elevate teams' performance and their interactions. And so that's what's important, this ability to neutralize and to open ourselves up to different perspectives based on what Megan's pointing to about understanding that people have a different motivation than we do.
I love what you're saying, because the thing that it also points to is we can decide what somebody's motivation is and therefore get triggered. Oh, they're doing that just because they don't like me or they don't trust me. I'll talk in a little bit about a case study that I had where the team was really reactive to the way this person was behaving, a lot out of that sense and of not being trusted. And when we really get to find out in more depth what is the motivation, there's a softening. I mean, to me, what is beautiful about the Enneagram is it's another way of what you're saying, Andrea. It helps. I mean, at the end of the day, we all have to learn to be more human together. We have to learn to trust each other more. We have to learn to be connected and empathetic. And this is a way of when empathy gets developed, when a true understanding gets developed, the heart, the human, can soften. And therefore that there's not that reactivity. Well, you're doing that because you don't trust me. And well, if you don't trust me, then I'm going to pile on more information so that you can, and then we have this reactive loop, which that's what creates the drag on teams. That's what creates the drag on results, is because we're doing all these behaviors that actually don't need to happen. And the Enneagram is complex enough and deep enough that we can actually get underneath there and weed out what is happening so that we can come to a better understanding and come to a better connection and relationship. So let me share a case study that I've dealt with. I've actually had this happen a couple of times where I had a player on a team, was one was a CFO, and they were like the foot in the souffle about everything. They would question, like take the executive team off track by their questioning and their yeah-butting and their what about thising and have you thought of thating. And I mean, even when something had been supposedly decided on, when it came back up, there would be more debate coming from this person. Now, the effect on the team was like, oh no, they're going to start again. And they would get very reactive and actually end up, like on the offside, trying to get things done so that this person would not get into the conversation, because they would just basically kill something with questions and with concerns. And when the team did the Enneagram, and then we got to see that the core motivation of this person that was a 6 was their need to feel secure. And not only that, getting to hear the story that this person's upbringing had been very in not a financial good place, where as a little kid feeling like there wasn't enough for food or for shelter, that the vigilant questioning that happened in the team really came out of, I don't want this ever to happen to anybody else ever again. So I am going to protect the house, which was the organization for them. And when the team could see that, they immediately, it still kind of makes me feel teary, they immediately fell in love, basically, and got the motivation, got where it came from, didn't love it still, but had more patience and more empathy, and the relationship shifted. And the team became more cohesive and effective because they got each other. And the 6, the person that was the questioner, when they got gotten, when they got seen, and that people recognized, oh, you're trying to make sure we're safe, they could relax, and they could maybe not take their, hey, are you listening, kind of chicken littling less seriously in themselves, because they knew other people were on board with trying to keep the team safe. It was beautiful. And that was just being able to do an Enneagram report for a team and individual reports, and then having a conversation about it.
Yeah. And it's so beautiful, Marla, because what you're pointing to is that the behavior motivation was not to obstruct decision-making. It was to keep the team safe. And it was coming from a place of care and concern about how can I mitigate any potential issues that can happen for this team and look out for their best interests. Yeah. And so it's just that tiny bit of awareness that can put us into compassion and empathy about where our colleagues are coming from, that can dynamically shift how we interact.
Right. And I mean, again, more and more organizations are looking for, or people in organizations, a more empathetic, a more humanistic place to be. It's more of a demand than it's ever been. And that was that moment of humanity where human got human on a much more basic, kind and caring place. It just was a huge unlock. Yeah. Yeah. So
should we look at another case study?
Yeah, and I see, do we have comments or questions that you want to elevate, Marley?
We have a bunch of comments that are actually coming in from Enver, essentially just really hitting on and understanding and enjoying the perspectives from the Enneagram, and also thanking Andrea as well earlier that I answered. So
Great.
Yeah, thank you, Enver, for more context from your own experience. It's great.
That is really helpful.
Megan?
Yeah, I was thinking in preparing for today's panel, thinking about the work that we've done on the Enneagram. I was reminded of work with just a very successful startup that was is led by a young Enneagram 3 leader. She's a natural leader, this voracious appetite for hard work and a really keen focus on goals. And not surprisingly, she's hired a leadership team that are comprised namely of Enneagram 3s as well, right? They have this palatable drive to get it done and go fast. And where we needed to be brought in and some teaming work was that they were really missing where they needed to slow down and actually slow down in greater analysis and reflection and pay closer attention to the setbacks and the lessons learned and mistakes and failure instead of rejecting it. So pulling up just, okay, well, what are we, Enneagram 3, what am I talking about? So our Enneagram 3s, we like that drive, they're motivated by the need to work hard, to succeed, to be worthy, and to avoid failure at all costs. So commonly referred to as that ambitious taskmaster or competitive achiever, right? That early life conditioning wired the belief that I have to work hard to succeed and to be worthy. And failure is not an option. I am what I do. So the communication style of a leadership team, of the leader and her team, was very fast. I remember it was like their motto was, keep up with me. It was practically tattooed on their arms. And so imagine who they were leaving. They noticed we're leaving behind people in the dust. And so the work that we did is just becoming more conscious and attentive to their communication styles and habits, and the conflict pinches, right, that the team recognized, and the need to slow down and really just valuing their worthiness in just a little less overdone busyness, and even listening more closely to like their thoughts and their feelings and what actually needed to be attended to, instead of the performative task list. So, really working on learning what we had to do, and really releasing that idea that, it was so important that everything get done. And so just, they recognize this team really worked on how can we be better in delegating, and also how can we slow down and provide better guidance to our people so that they can actually grow in their capabilities and their responsibilities and their results and their impact. And, where we worked with the team in working with non-3 personality patterns is that, okay, so if you're going to be interacting with this heavily biased Enneagram 3 personality preference, like, be kind. Talk to them keep the conversation brief, to the point, practical. Let them know that you're there to solve a problem. Like, recognize that you also have a part to play. Can you meet your Enneagram 3 dominant leadership team in kind and compassion as well? Can you be as concrete and practical and well prepared for meetings as possible? And also, maybe you can role model, just invite more curiosity in what are the needs of this team, so that they can express themselves a little bit more fully. I mean, it truly is, Marla, you've talked about, this dance. How do we meet and point and dance in the relationship? Where do we meet our colleagues in greater understanding? Where do we point to where we want to go? And then how do we dance in that mutuality of people have different needs, different things make them tick, and where can we just meet each other in the relationship with a lot more flexibility?
Well, and a big part of what Megan's speaking to here is it further endorsed by culture, right? So the United States is an Enneagram 3 personality, this idea of coming to America and achieving your success and making everything happen. So then we have the overlay of culture that is telling us, yes, bias for efficiency is spot on. Yes, productivity is essential. And so understanding the Enneagram types then in our organizations help us unhook from the idea that that is always the only way to do things.
Or the right way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it helps us also buck whatever cultural overlays are present in addition to that.
I love that you're saying that, because that's what I was going to jump in and say. I've seen the Enneagram 3 leader that's like, oh, I'll just fire everybody and get A players because, that's the kind of team I create. Well, that's really I have said to people, that's a lazy leader that does that. We have to be able to manage a diverse pool of human capital. And if you can't, you're actually lazy, and you can't always just find a bunch of A players and make a team. So you have to learn to be effective at seeing different motivations, speaking to different motivations, and also bucking the culture. The leader creates a culture within a culture. And we may have a 3 culture in the United States, and I would say even hyper so in the Valley. And then if we have an organization we've got so much pressure. And then when we've hired in an Enneagram 2 or an Enneagram 8 or a 6, it starts to create this dissonance. And the more that leaders, particularly at the highest levels, understand that, oh no, there are lots of different motivations, and how do I have people get their best work done and encouraged to be who they are rather than trying to fit into something that isn't really who they are. So we could go on and on about this for sure. I want to check in and go, I'd love to know, are there any questions? I see 2 more. Are there questions you have about the Enneagram thus far, or case studies? Not comments so much, but no. Okay, great.
And you can always feel free to raise your hand if a question comes up as we're going through.
Yeah, or chat it. We're monitoring chat. Yeah. So we're going to move to a reflection, because to me, we could talk about the Enneagram all, and we're, unfortunately, you didn't all come with your Enneagram type. I'd be curious, by a show of hands, or if you want to chat, if you know your Enneagram, chat it or raise your hand if you don't want to tell people what it is. Who knows our Enneagram? Great. I love it. Okay. A 2. We got a 2 out there. Anybody else want to put their Enneagram in? Okay, great. Another 2. I love it. Who else? Who else? Okay, great. All right. Thank you. Anybody else have their Enneagram? They're probably maybe quickly looking it up because they don't think about it. Okay, great. Okay, great. You and okay. And Ver, you say you know, but great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Lovely. I love it. Okay, good. So for those of you that don't necessarily know your Enneagram type, it doesn't really matter for what we're going to do. We're just going to have like a coach-like conversation with you, but we have a reflection exercise to help you start to think about and uncover what your motivations are. So we're going to throw in the chat the reflection questions, and we're going to give you a moment or 2 to answer the reflection questions. Here they are. What growth opportunity, I have a growth opportunity feedback you've gotten about your communication style? And we're going to give you a few minutes to just write this down on your own screen. You don't have to chat it. What may be your explanation for why you do that? It's just your best guess. You may not know, but yeah, I think I do that because X. And what's the impact you want to have? If growth opportunity feedback usually means we're having we're having an impact we don't necessarily want to have, or others don't want us to have. And so if you really do have an aspiration to shift, what do you want to shift into? What's the impact you want to have?
So if you know your type, you might know some of your habituated behavior patterns, if this is something that you have done some work with and aware of, or you may have done other personality assessments, or just, as Marla's saying, based on feedback. You may know what some of your patterns are. And even when we know our patterns, we can't necessarily easily unhook from them, especially if they've worked for us. So if you're an 8 and you're a challenger and stepping up and like being the big voice and speaking out has been your pattern and it's worked for you, then there's no reason necessarily for you to believe that it isn't an effective communication style. And you might imagine that there might be impact that you are unaware of in engaging with team members or others in your life, if that's called to your attention.
And I love these prompts because they very much speak to what we're doing in Enneagram coaching, whether we're doing Enneagram coaching on a one-to-one basis or Enneagram coaching in a team, is to really stop. The leadership development starts with our own self-relating where am I at? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? And so that we can start to bring into greater awareness, oh, this is where I'm coming from. This is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. And start to almost challenge those, the choices that we're making. Where can I actually expand the choices that are available to me? So when
and I want to underline the expand. This is about development. This is about how can I expand to be even greater, even better, even more effective, even more connected. It's that's what we're offering with this. Is that and seeing what you're saying, seeing initially who am I being right now, that self-awareness, and then the invitation to shift. I'm sorry, you were just saying
that's exactly your point, right? The invitation to shift. And so, what is the impact that I want to have? Instead, maybe I can explain that the reason why I do what I do, I might have a habit of over responsibility, right? Is that I want to make sure that I'm taking care of the team. And the impact that I want to have is I don't want to deny anyone else the opportunity for responsibility, for autonomy, for
Collaboration.
liberation, right? And so I have to consider, what is the impact that I want to have instead? Well, that's where we can start in our coaching and our teaming work, is to explore what are other options that are available to respond instead.
If this is at all interesting to you as a leader inside an organization, or as a leader of a team for your team development, we have an offer that really is in and of itself can be team changing. And we're offering a team to come forward. I think this is limited time, where you can bring your team, have individual Enneagrams done for each of your team members. And we do a team, I would say, coaching / debrief of the team Enneagram. Because yes, not only are there individual Enneagrams, but then all of those come together to create a team Enneagram. And it is very telling about the team and their challenges and their strengths and where they need to grow. So the offer will expire June 1st. And I really encourage you to find out more. We are also, as a part of this webinar, for who receives the recording, we're offering a 30-minute consultation. Now, this is a no selling. I promise it'll be me. I will not try to sell you anything. I really am just there to be of service and pay forward the gifts I've been given. And this is for leaders and people who are actively leading teams and are inside organizations. I want to be a support to you being the most effective you can possibly be. So there will be an email that comes through if you're registered. And if you're a leader inside an organization, I am happy to talk with you for 30 minutes about how you can use the Enneagram yourself or with your team. So any final thoughts, Enneagram specialists, to share with our group before we let them go?
I think my parting thought is that, allow the insight about yourself and others to really just be an opening. Why spend another minute judging yourself for why you do what you do? And open yourself up to all the infinite possibilities and potential that's within you and your colleagues, the team, to grow and to mature and to enjoy this place where there is an opening for greater understanding and collaboration and cohesion.
Yeah, that sense of connection and compassion is what opens people up and invites more vulnerability for them to be candid about where they are coming from. So that is what is a big piece of this work that we enjoy so much, is what it makes possible, the doors that it opens for you and your team.
Yeah. Human is what makes up an organization magical. And the more human and understanding our humanity we can be, both the gifts and the challenges, the more magic we can unleash in that human capital inside organizations. And this is not the only way, obviously, but it is a very powerful way to do that. And I invite you to step into that transformation that you can have for yourself or for your team by using the Enneagram. So on that note, leaders, we will give you a few minutes back in between whatever you are probably going to next. I hope it's lunch, but sometimes, unfortunately, it is not for folks on the Pacific Coast time. They go back to work. So thank you for your kind attention, and you will hear from us soon. So thank you so much, and bye-bye.